I'm Ron Porter Grape Tizer. I'm a documentary filmmaker and documentarian. I'm best known for such documentaries as, well, actually this is my first documentary, but you shouldn't have to have made like 10 documentaries to be considered a documentarian. This is one that I'm making now that you're watching, so I'm a documentarian.
I had been feeling lonely, unwanted, unloved, useless, and fat. Mostly just fat. And no amount of sitting at a park bench intercut with random cutaway shots in an attempt to make it look more cinematic, despite the fact that in this shot I'm facing this way, but in the next shot I'm suddenly facing forwards again, made me feel any better at all. And I was still fat. Then a revelation. While walking down an alleyway while filming my documentary, I thought to myself, why don't I just play video games? That's a good way of making purpose in life, according to what I've seen on YouTube and online. So that is what I decided to do. I'ma get into this world of games. What is the problem with people today? Why are they impatient? Why won't they talk to you? Why won't they say words like please and thank you? It's because they're playing the game, and you know they ain't got no shame. Games make you violent, punching a woman, kicking a man. No, games make you racist, saying the N-word just 'cause you can, and you know that they're playing the games, and they are so fucking lame with stupid games. My name is Ron Porter Grape Tizer. I'm a documentary filmmaker. Wait, I already said all of this stuff. I do not know what to say in a dramatic monologue for documentary, but it's me driving in the car, looking like thoughtful. I'm a little bit nervous, to be honest. What is this adventure into games gonna be like? Am I gonna turn out to like games? Am I gonna be good at them? I'm gonna be bad at them? And what's it gonna be like going back to being a virgin? I like talking to women in my current life, but what's it going to be like to not be able to talk to them anymore, just be an incompetent, bumbling boob? It's going to be strange. And how about washing? I'm going to have to stop washing. I'm going to have to stop grooming, and I like those things, so it's going to be quite the ride. Let's get some answers. But how can we talk about games if we don't know what is game? Let us briefly explore the history of the video game. The first video game is sometimes considered to be people hitting each other with sticks. Throughout history, this was humanity's sole amusement, and some justify this as a video game because they were thinking like it was a computer, but it was actually just them hitting each other with sticks. It wasn't long, however, that people wanted to make the video game actually be on something electronic. And how could you play a video game without a video computer? The Colossus computer, released in 1943, is often considered to be the first programmable electronic digital computer. The computer was very big and unwieldy, and it only had one game on it, which was defeating the Nazis in World War II, which you could only play once.
By the end of the war, 10 Colossus machines decoded messages around the clock.
Historians now reckon that with the aid of the Mark II Colossi, we shortened the war by at least 2 years.
Allied troops returned home to heroes' welcomes.
Once defeating the Nazis was completed, they scrapped the whole thing.
Winston Churchill didn't want the Soviet Union to know the Lorentz code could be broken. He ordered that the Colossus machines be destroyed, leaving pieces no bigger than a man's hand.
And oh yeah, it was way better than Alan Turing's video game computer.
Bomb.
Because the bomb only used rotors, and the Colossus computer used thermionic valves or vacuum tubes, Shame, Turing. Further from the Colossus, the ENIAC supercomputer was released in 1945. It was designed to calculate artillery firing tables for the United States Army's Ballistic Research Laboratory. Talk about a load of fun. And it was only available at one games arcade in the University of Pennsylvania. Not exactly convenient. And fun factoid, the first programmers of the ENIAC computer were wommenz. Historians had at first mistaken them for refrigerator ladies, i.e. models posing in front of the machine. Most of the women did not receive recognition for their work on the ENIAC in their lifetimes. These early gaming machines were limited by their size and design, not to mention the lack of games. But that changed in 1947 with the patenting of the cathode ray amusement device. This revolutionary game had you moving a squiggle across a bunch of lines. Excitement. I interviewed a games history expert about this, the first video game. Actually, the cathode ray amusement device does not qualify as the first video game because it ran on analog hardware, it did not function via a computing device, it was never mass produced, and there's no evidence that it influenced the video game industry. Thanks, nerd. I guess it wasn't the first video game then. Gaming machines at that time could only play about one game and were created exclusively for research or for exhibitions to the public. Two examples were Bertie the Brain in 1950 and Nimrod in 1951. And oh yeah, Alan Turing almost made a comeback with his Turo Champ chess program in 1950, but he never even released it to the public, so that's a double fail. Bertie the Brain used the Adatron tube, a version of the vacuum tube that was soon obsolete because transistors came along. Early games were full of a bunch of losers, and the Nimrod presented an incredible array of light bulbs. In order to play the game, Nim. Boring. But in 1958, there was a breakthrough. Tennis for Two was the first game developed as entertainment rather than for research. It employed not only vacuum tubes, but transistors. And soon after, Spacewalk, the first game to be ported to other platforms and to be played widely beyond an exhibition. It could potentially be considered the first personal computer game, although it was only really played by some select programming nerds. Eventually, there was the release of the Magnavox Odyssey in 1972, the first home video game console. This essentially birthed the video game industry, although not a huge commercial success. To follow was a groundbreaking version of the Odyssey's table tennis game. Developed by Atari, the game Pong, named for the horrifying stench of the programmers as they playtested it, and later the stink of the gamers as they played for hours in public arcades, was released in 1972. The rest they say is history. Throughout the 1970s, arcades continued to grow. 1978 saw the release of Space Invaders, the first game with a political message. Other consoles followed the Magnavox. The Atari 2600 in 1977, the RCA Studio 2 in 1978, the Intellivision, and later in 1982, the Atari 5200. Over this span of time, major gaming companies were growing. Sega, Nintendo, Square, and Midway, who released the massively successful Pac-Man in 1980. Gaming was also expanding to personal computers. But what if the development of games, from a collection of moving pixels with no inherent worth beyond immediate reflexive action, to the moving works of art we know today, with complex narratives and explorations of real-life issues? Arguably, the seed for what we now know is the modern, fully rounded video game experience was planted with the release of the monumental 1982 epic, Custer's Revenge. Released on the Atari 2600, Custer's Revenge presented a complex historio-political critique on the inherent injustice in the reservation system, which had immiserated Native Americans for over a century. This was computer game as art. It asks you not whether you would, but whether you should. Gallivanting across the screen as a deranged naked General Custer, dodging black diagonal shapes, you are presented with difficult moral decisions, demanding justifications for the historical treatment of Native Americans. Finding none, humanity's injustice is projected back upon itself through the distorted lens of an absurd conflagration. Understand Custer's Revenge, and you understand the history of video games.
Flawless victory. Fatality.
Then a whole bunch of other shit happened. Scott Wellsey is a 37-year-old gamer. He's been playing games his entire life. Unemployed, lives with his mother. And he says he turned out just fine.
Just working on my journal, I find it really centers me a lot.
Not only that, Scott is a budding musician. This one I've been kicking around, it's called Women Are Whores.
I made a base. Really awesome in Fallout 4.
In between Scott's insane guitar ramblings, I became curious. What does playing games your entire life do to you? Is the unemployed Scott, who lives with his mother, as well balanced as he lets on? I sat down for an interview with Scott at his home, 57 Braithwaite Street, California. In order to protect Scott's reputation from other gamer nerds, I've darkened his appearance for this interview.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Scott. I'm a gamer. I've been playing all of the games, all the classics, from Pong to Super Mario to Mario Kart to Crash Bandicoot. I've played all of them. I've played the Call of Duty, Medal of Honors 1, 2, 3, and 4, Final Fantasies 1 to the current Final Fantasy.
Interesting, a real expert then. So what is your favourite game?
My favourite game is probably Tomb Raider with Lara Croft because I love her humongous breasts.
In my research as a documentarian, I found many people seem to think gamers are dangerous. So, are gamers dangerous?
I think there is actually something to that. Us gamers are actually kind of dangerous. Me, for example, I committed my first act of murder at the age of 5.
5?
I remember it very vividly. In fact, I killed multiple beings that day. I was in this strange maze. I was eating crumbs of bread that were lying around, and I was being chased by these weird jellyfish-type creature men, or women, or non-binary, I don't know what they were. I happened upon a giant crumb, and after I ate that, I went into a murderous rage, and I turned around, and I just slaughtered all of these creatures that were chasing me. It was a violent, horribly violent act. I fought in all kinds of wars over the years, even World War II, and not only that, but I fought wars in the future with Kevin Spacey. I've entered numerous fighting competitions. One was the King of the Iron Fist, which I won handily, but then I killed my father by dropping him off a cliff, only for him to come back a few years later and kill me, and then me to be resurrected as a series of clones. And now I'm up to number 8 or 9 of that competition. I've also been a member of the Yakuza, but I had quite a heart of gold during that period, and I didn't really kill anybody, really, but I did play a lot of poker and side games, and also Pocket Circuit Racer.
I'm sorry, but looking at my notes here, you appear to be mentioning events that occur in the games Call of Duty and the Yakuza series. That these are not things that have happened to you at all, but that you're confusing the games with reality.
It's not so difficult to tell the difference between reality and a video game, is it? I think I would know that. I also think it's not very kind to belittle someone else's experiences. I'm not sure what my friend would say. She was killed by a man named Sephiroth who put his samurai sword right through her chest, and then the magic bounced down the stairs with healing magic, which I used later to defeat Sephiroth at the giant meteor crater. Now, are you trying to tell me that didn't happen? I mean, that's a little bit rude.
I'm sorry, but that just sounds like the classic 1997 PlayStation 1 game, Final Fantasy VII.
So condescending. This is why us gamers hate you normies.
Normie. That's the first time you've used that word. What is normie?
A normie is a person who has a job, who goes to school, who has kids, who owns a house, who does things, who bathes, who has had sex, who don't understand the deep lore of the Metroid games. God bless Samus's soul. That's normies. They disgust us.
Let's move on. As a gamer, what is your experience with the opposite sex? Women.
When it comes to women, that's a little bit tricky. I still live at home like most 37-year-olds, and my best friend is my mother. She's a bitch. I have got something kind of going with a woman right now. A really just fantastic high elf that I met in Tamriel. And she wants me to kill a dragon for her, and then we'll see where it goes from there.
Okay, I don't have anything about that in my notes, but it definitely sounds like something from a video game.
Right, I don't even see how you've survived the apocalyptic wasteland with that attitude.
So if you had a wider message to society about people like yourself, gamers, what would it be?
There's more to us than just our statistics. I may have 37 strength and high charisma rating, but that doesn't mean that I don't have feelings.
Scott Wellsey, thank you for being on my documentary. I just needed somebody to interview.
Thank you. I appreciate the chance for people to see what gamers are really like. We're not evil. We're not bad people. Long live Elliot Rodger.
But after the interview finished, Scott gave me the strangest offer I've ever received.
It's something that I saw, that you can kill strippers and actually rearrange their bodies in funny poses. It's freaking hilarious. You want to come?
No, thank you.
Okay, well,
It sounds horrible.
there's a lot of ripe killing to be had. Okay, well, okay. Maybe next time. Yeah. Alright, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks.
After spending some time with Scott, I was confused and a little bit scared. Why was he like this? Why was he so misogynistic and racist and sexist? Why did he hate women so much? Why did he seem so aggressive and angry? It was beginning to dawn on me. The title of this video is The Problem with Games. Suddenly I realize, what is the problem with games? Gamers. You saw that coming, I just had to throw that into the video somewhere. Why are gamers such losers? Why do they do such fucked up things? This article, Top 10 Violent Crimes Tied to Video Games, lists lots of fucked up things video gamers have done. For example, in 2013, 14-year-old Nathan Brooks was grounded and prohibited from playing video games after receiving detention in school. He decided to do something about it. He got a gun and shot his parents. Devin Moore is an American murderer believed to have been inspired by the game Grand Theft Auto Vice City. Daniel Petrick shot both his parents in 2007 after they confiscated his copy of Halo 3. In 1997, Evan Ramsey shot his school principal and a student before wounding 2 others. It is largely believed that Ramsey had been imitating the video game Doom. In 2006, Kim Veer-Gill shot up his school. It came out he had played the game Super Columbine Massacre RPG. Adam Lanza massacred 27 people at Sandy Hook Elementary School, mostly children, on December 14, 2012. He was described as a socially awkward loner who spent most of his time playing video games such as Call of Duty and Gears of War in his bedroom at his mother's house where he lived. Perhaps the most famous of all, the Columbine High School shooting was perpetrated by 2 people who are big fans of the game Doom. In his journal, one of the shooters wrote, "Everyone should be put to a test, an ultimate Doom test. See who can survive in an environment using only smarts and military skills. Put them in a Doom world. No authority, no refuge, no BS cop-out excuses." And finally, maybe the biggest fucking asshole on this planet, Anders Breivik, the massive twat, douchebag, nationalist shitface, who killed 77 people on July 22, 2011 and tried to bomb the government, was, according to his manifesto, an avid player of World of Warcraft and Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. So why are all of these guys who play the video games committing all of the crime? And what is the explanation for why gamers are so fucking cringeworthy?
Until PewDiePie is passed by T-Series. As long as PewDiePie is the #1 YouTube channel, I will only eat salad. No more Mountain Dew. No more McDonald's. No more cheeseburgers. But the day T-Series wins, I'm going all buffet!
Content warning, the next part of the video briefly shows domestic violence. And in 2018, a disturbing trend formed. Gamers took up a new technique to strengthen their game, beating their wife off screen as the child cries on. Was said to imbue the gamer with super game power, until it was finally made illegal. Don't fucking beat your wife just cause he interrupts your stupid video game, you fucking piece of shit. That they make memes like this. Gamers don't age, we level up. Ugh. Gamers are never alone, oh god. You can call me a loser in real life all you want, but in the gaming world, you're the loser. Don't piss me off, I'm close to leveling up and you look like just enough XP. Ugh, cringe. Jack Thompson is an activist against video games who blames everything that's ever happened in the entire world on video game usage.
What we're saying is that Devin Moore was, in effect, trained to do what he did. He was given a murder simulator. He bought it as a minor. He played it hundreds of hours, which is primarily a cop-killing game. It's our theory, which we think we can prove to a jury in Alabama, that but for the video game training, he would not have done what he did.
It seems that the gamer's only response is incredibly fucking lame comics like this. Hi, my name is Tim Buckley. I'm a 24-year-old gamer. I've played every violent game in existence and I've never killed anyone. There are millions of gamers just like me, and we're getting sick of people like you blaming your problems on us. Ignorance causes violence, not video games. Man up and take responsibility. We outnumber you, and the people that think like you. Don't fuck with us. Yeah, I don't know if that's the best response. Don't fuck with us, okay. If video games have taught me anything, it's that if you encounter enemies, you're going the right way. Gamers don't even understand physiology. Here, a gamer says, not only did they remove her cleavage, but they also removed her vagina bones. Ah yes, women's famous vagina bones. That's how that all works. Gamers have also created controversy for their attitudes towards white supremacy. Famous gaming YouTuber PewDiePie was widely criticized recently for shouting out a clandestine alt-right neo-Nazi channel, whose name I will not mention.
But you know, YouTube star PewDiePie now promotes anti-Semitic content. By what? By saying I enjoyed his anime review? The worst thing that I've seen him reference was from another channel that he has, not the channel I mentioned, and a video that was 2 years old. So, wow, amazing. And yes, he does have Nazi references in them, and I see them now, but unless you pay close attention, and unless you're well familiar with Nazi trivia, or whatever you want to call it, these references will go past you. The irony here is that I'm supposed to be the Nazi, but I don't know any of these goddamn references. I mean, again, all I said was, I like this guy's anime review. Anyone with a level-headed brain can tell that I don't know this guy more than this.
Hey guys, PewDiePie here. Subscribe to this neo-Nazi. Leave me alone, guys. But comments from this YouTuber tell a different story. They were asked, do you not red pill friends in real life? Red pill means to basically turn them super racist. I still appreciate theoretical advice, fam. The YouTuber replied, not really, they have an idea of my power level. Power level means how fucking Nazi you are. Since I'm so gosh darn edgy. But I try to leave enough room for them to laugh it off. Spoonful of sugar and all that. No prob, theoretically. So trying to make your fans racist. I see. And then it gets even more explicit. What's the best way to red pill people on the Jewish question? I forgot what accent I was doing for this person. The Jewish question is the idea that the Jews are a big conspiracy destroying all civilization and the Jews are bad. Pretend to joke about it until the punchline really lands, I would assume. So this guy is saying, yeah, I really try to tell people anti-Semitic, racist, anti-Jewish people, and this makes people think a fucking gamer is a goddamn racist. Thanks a lot for fucking it up for everybody else who's just trying to play the fucking games, PewDiePie. Gaming has been controversial for a very long time. The famous Yale Milgram experiment in 1961 showed that people were reluctant to press a button to electrocute somebody.
You were seated in front of this impressive-looking instrument, the shock generator. Its essential feature is a line of switches that goes from 15 volts to 450 volts, and a set of verbal designations that goes from slight shock to moderate shock, strong shock, very strong shock, intense shock, extreme intensity shock, and finally XXX, danger severe shock. If he gets each answer correctly, fine, you move on to the next pair. But if he makes a mistake, you are instructed to give him an electric shock, starting with 15 volts, and you increase the shock one step on each error.
But when they were told that it was a video game, they did it with glee.
That is incorrect. This one will be 195 volts.
Controversy around the culture of video games particularly ramped up recently because of the Gamergate controversy in 2014.
Hey guys, it's Miles. So you may or may not have been hearing about this whole Gamergate situation. Some say that it's a response to corruption in gaming journalism, and others will tell you that it's just straight up cyberbullying. And it's super confusing. But one thing is for sure, the internet is in the middle of a huge culture war, and we are about to catch you up on it. So what is Gamergate? Great question. To answer that, we have to go all the way back to August when an angry ex-boyfriend of Zoe Quinn, who's a game developer, made a long blog post accusing her of basically trading sex for good reviews from a game journalist. It's like someone accusing a movie director of sleeping with a film critic just so they can get a good review of their film, which is pretty sketchy. And thus the Quinspiracy was born. So obviously once this story got out, it pissed off a lot of gamers about it.
I'm sorry, I kinda zoned out there a little bit. Does using video games cause violence? The easiest way to answer this question was to look at one of the most comprehensive reviews of all of the research around violence in video games. The technical report on the review of the violent video game literature by the American Psychological Association, which was prompted as a review to their own resolution in 2005 on violent video games, which advocated for further research into the topic and a reduction in violent video game usage by children and young people. The report was put together by a task force of 7 senior scientists with great expertise in the field. They undertook a comprehensive literature review. They scoured the internet and they contacted approximately 130 of the most frequently published researchers in the topic area to request nominations of the 10 strongest empirically based articles addressing violent video game use, published between 2000 and 2013. The process yielded 4 meta-analyses conducted since the 2005 resolution and directly relevant to the task force's charge to evaluate the literature related to violence in video games and interactive media. They managed to identify 4 meta-analyses. The meta-analyses reviewed more than 150 research reports, including more than 400 effect sizes. But Ron Porter Grape Tizer, what is an effect size? An effect size is the magnitude of the difference between groups. Statistician Jacob Cohen suggested that 0.2 can be considered a small effect size, 0.5 represents a medium effect size, and 0.8 a large effect size. Being not a statistician, I'm just going to take these at face value, and all of you nerds can argue about it in the comment section. All 4 meta-analyses reported an adverse effect of violent video game use on aggressive outcomes, with an effect size greater than 0 and a narrow range of unadjusted effect sizes 0.14 to 0.29, which would be, according to Cohen, small, urging towards medium. However, the author's interpretation of these results varied considerably. Reading through the study, one thing became absolutely clear. The only absolute conclusion that one can make from the research thus far is that playing video games, probably to an extended period of time, has a small to perhaps medium chance of increasing aggressive behavior. People have been quick to point out, aggressive behavior is not the same as violence. The research is not saying that if you play a video game, you might go out and beat someone up. But it is saying if you play a lot of violent video games and somebody annoys you, that you might be a little bit more cranky. The link between violent video game exposure and aggressive behavior is one of the most studied and well established. Of the 31 reviews studied, 14 investigated the relation between violent video game use and aggressive behaviors. Positive association between violent video game use and increased aggressive behavior was found in most 12 of 14 studies, but not all studies published after the earlier meta-analyses. I recommend that you read the entire report. There's a lot of interesting information in here. For example, there is also evidence of less emotional reactivity, increased emotional desensitization as a negative outcome, which is often seen as a result of previous experience with violent video games. These studies did not really look at whether video games cause violence. And this is just my personal view as Ron Porter Grape Tizer. But I think perhaps that is because that is a link which is basically impossible to study. How do you know whether someone committed violence because of a game or due to confounding factors and the wider social stew and situation they find themselves in? In the conclusion of the analysis of the 4 meta-analyses, they also note the violent video game literature uses a variety of concepts, terms, and definitions in considering aggression and aggressive outcomes, sometimes using violence and aggression interchangeably, or using aggression to represent the full range of aggressive outcomes studied. This lack of precision has contributed to some debate about the effects of violent video game use. And further, in psychological research, aggression is usually conceptualized as behavior that is intended to harm another. Violence can be defined as an extreme form of physical aggression, as the intentional use of physical force or power that either results in or has the high likelihood of resulting in harm. Thus, all violence is aggression, but not all aggression is violence. This distinction is important for understanding this research literature, for considering the implications of the research, and for interpreting popular press accounts of the research and its applicability to societal events. This research backed up basically what I already thought: excessive playing of violent video games increases aggression. However, this is not the same as saying violent video game usage makes you go out and shoot a whole bunch of people, or beat up your wife, or hit somebody, or do something violent. That is not supported by the literature and is something that is maybe just conjectured upon. For added perspective, it's important to note obvious truths, such as that playing video games is not the only hobby or activity which has been haunted by a history of violence around it. I managed to find a study on aggression caused by sports, because I think it's a very good point of comparison with video games. The study on sports notes: as an athlete, you can learn fast from the people around you, athletes, parents, coaches, spectators, that aggression is an essential coordinate in sport. hurting the opponent, or breaking the rules got to happen with a frequency so big that they have obtained in the general perception the status of normality. The influence of coaches in the process of values transmission is essential. Therefore, it is very important to be trained and educated appropriately so they strengthen pro-social behaviors of the athletes, clearing them from aggressive behaviors. This conclusion that the competitive nature of sports encourages aggression neatly dovetails into something said in the APA study of video games. Researchers have begun to explore game characteristics other than violence as an explanation of the link between violent video game use and aggression. Competition, in particular, has been put forth as an alternative reason for aggression. When gamers compete with one another, an element of that competition can involve aggressive conduct towards another player for the goal of winning. Such behaviors should be less likely to occur when cooperative gameplay occurs, even when the aggressive content is part of the game, because teamwork requires people to work with one another to win the game. Competition, then, may provide an independent influence on aggressive outcomes after playing aggressive video games. In my view, this statement backs up some of the issues around playing video games. It's the culture. How that culture formed and how it's propagated would probably require 10 million more videos. But that and lack of moderation could be the basis for why we have so much trouble with so many things. I no longer know what this accent is supposed to be. It's a little bit concerning because who knows what percentage or amount of aggressive behaviors might escalate to something worse. And who knows how many of these violent occurrences involving video games in the media might have been reduced or not appeared at all if they had not been playing video games at the time. I realized the only way to find out was to expose myself to video games and see what took place.
This should be simple enough. I am just going to make my favorite beverage, coffee. Here's me, first, making coffee after playing no games at all. My workstation maybe needs a little bit of tidying up, but it's okay, get rid of this, don't need that there. Got a good cloth, clean, give it a bit of a clean, and of course, turn on the kettle. Making a coffee without playing games. Alright, just get the milk. Got my milk here. Alright. Soy milk, very important. There we go, put in the coffee. Special blend, great stuff. It's only $3 for this. Little bit of raw sugar just to give it a bit of a kick. Put in some water. The milk. Looks delicious, let's see how it is. Just gotta walk around the camera tripod here. Dangers of my profession. Well, sitting here with my coffee, I feel very much like a regular man. Just an everyday bloke. Very normal. But see what happens trying to do a routine daily task after playing a game. Ugh. Oh, come on. It's not even fucking boiled yet. It should be pre-boiled. That's what I want. What's this? Soy milk. Soy fucking milk! That's for gays! I don't want no gay milk. I want something that straight men can drink. Yeah, fuck you, soy milk. Okay, let's see. I have to actually go get some real goddamn milk out of the fridge. Fucking boil it. Motherfucking games make you aggressive. Bullshit. Okay, let me see. Man's milk. I need man's milk. Something men can drink. Jewish milk. Alright, there we go. Special blend. Shit brand! That's all I can afford. Black people get everything and I just get that shit coffee. Sugar. Bollocks. Ooh, sugar. Fuck you. Damn it. It's all... Everyone's against me. You know? Everyone just... Especially women. Women. Slut, it's time to go drink this fucking bullshit. God damn you. Fuck, I can't afford the nice stuff. Sitting here drinking coffee after having played a video game. It's fucking disgusting. It's garbage. It's filth. Just like society. The society which has overlooked me just because I'm a white man. I'm the last person it's okay to discriminate against. They say Nazi science is wrong. But some of those people look kind of subhuman. They've ruined this neighborhood. They've ruined everything.
But just you wait. Ron Porter Grapetizer. He will have his revenge against everyone who has wronged him. You'll see. You'll all see. I'm not going to sit here and drink this crap anymore. No way. Go to hell, all of you.
Suddenly, I'm experiencing sadness. I don't like who I've became. I've become cruel, homophobic, racist, and anti-Semitic. The experiment had gone too far. I had to find myself. Find myself again. Oh yeah, so emotional. I stood in the rain, thinking, is this what a man has to be? Does a man have to be a gamer? Or can he just be a man? What is this toxic masculinity that I've been experiencing? But what had games done to me? I have to do better. I have to return to the land of the non-virgins.
Who am I?
Goodbye, games.
In my journey to the heart of darkness of games, I do not like the man who I have become. I no longer recognize myself, so it is time, like Freud would have said, to kill my father in order to sleep with my mother. And how will I do that? I must get rid of these. Farewell, Shadow of Mordor. Goodbye, World of Final Fantasy. The Last of Us, more like goodbye. Bloodborne, only $36. Blood, no morn. God of War, more like God of Rubbish. Mad Max, I hardly knew thee. Dark Souls, more like going there.
It's a sin. It's a sin. Everything I've ever done, everything I'll ever do, every place I've ever been, everywhere I'm going to, it's a sin. At school they taught me how to be so pure in thought and word and deed. They didn't quite succeed.
And so ends my brief, unpleasant foray into the world of games. Not something I'd like to repeat anytime soon, but it was still quite a journey of discovery. I won't forget it. So if you had to write a message to society about people like yourself, so if you, God, it's hard to keep talking like this.